Welcome everybody to another episode of Community Voices. Hope everybody's doing good and feeling great. Welcome to November. Start of a new month, and what a great way to really kick off this November with this special episode. I'm actually I say I'm excited every episode, and I really be excited. I really do be excited every episode, but this is a special episode because somebody who I consider a friend, somebody who I believe in, invest my time in, and really like I'm rooting for in real life. So I'm extremely excited to have her on today. I want to make sure also we know it's November, Native American Heritage Month, and like we do every year, we want to make sure we tap in. We again continue to uplift voices in every community, and we make sure we put a specific emphasis on this on during this month. And I'm just really excited. I'm really excited. So today we are joined by creator, podcaster, notable figure in the sneaker community, and again, somebody who I can call my friend, Elaina. Welcome to the
Oh,
show. How you
thank
doing?
you. Thank you for that intro. That was very nice. I'm excited
Of
to be
course.
here.
Absolutely, me too. Like I said, we were like trying to get everything scheduled out, and I was like, I know somebody who I've been waiting to do this with. So I'm glad it
Yeah,
all
I
worked
love
out.
it.
So I'm actually gonna go ahead and dive into it. 'Cause I think a lot of people's introduction to you, if they don't meet you in person, or even if they do meet you in person, because you're a very fly person. You know what I'm saying? It's always like head to toe, especially within the sneakers. A lot of people know you, for being such a voice in the sneaker space, especially
Mhm.
representing for women in the sneaker space. But I don't. I feel like it's another level for people to really know, your rich history.
Yeah.
You know, uh, I'm nervous to try to say this, but I'm trying to say it. Uh, Cahuilla.
Cahuilla, yes, good job.
Come
Cahuilla.
on now. Cahuilla native from
Yes.
Morongo Indian Reservation.
Yes, that is where I'm from. Cahuilla
But bricks
native.
before this.
I know you're okay. I know. Because the spelling looks nothing like the pronunciation, to be completely honest. So I get it. Yeah.
But I'm really big on like making sure like I'm really big on pronouncing things right because I feel like and so often they'd be like, oh, whatever you call it, like, but it's like no, like, you gotta
Yeah.
respect what it is. So I really
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I said it right that time. But being from that reservation as well, and you currently reside in LA, which is why I have the hat on.
Yes.
I want you to kind of take me through like that heritage that you kind of grew up through, and also how it shaped you into like the woman that you are today.
Yeah, like you said, I am Kuya native. I'm from Morongo Indian Reservation, which is located in Southern California. It's about an hour and a half outside of Los Angeles. We have my reservation is actually one of the biggest reservations out here. It's not really broken up, but like the Cahuilla people reside in Morongo, Agua Caliente, and Palm Springs, and then up in the mountain, like towards Anza as well. But like my people specifically are at Morongo. But my heritage played a really big part in like who I am today, the woman I am, and growing up. Like not a lot of people I know in the community, indigenous, didn't really get the chance to grow up on their reservation or may not have that connection, but know that they have some cultural ties to being native or Indian, however people would like to say it. I know people always ask, not to go off topic, but people always like, is it Indian? Is it Native American? And like I think either or is fine, but I always say Native American. But yeah, I grew up on my reservation, and I was really happy about that as an adult when I realize it now, because I live in LA and I absolutely love Los Angeles, but I do go home all the time. I was literally home yesterday with my family on the res and everything, and all my family is there. And I think as a kid growing up out there, you don't realize it when you're in it. You're a kid, you're just, this is home, this is where I'm from, this is my experience. And as an adult coming out and living off of the reservation for almost 10 years now, I realized like how important and valuable that is to me as an adult, and all of the things I've taken away from it. We celebrate our culture all the time. I grew up in it, and I didn't realize that's necessarily what we were doing. Like you do, a lot of cultures around the world do certain things and have traditions and values growing up, but I didn't realize how different it was until I started seeing other people do different things. And I'm so appreciative of that. I love that my family members, they practice our songs and our dances. We're of the birds, that's what our thing is. So we bird sing, we bird dance and all that. And I just got to go to the school. We have a school on a reservation for young kids up to about till high school, and they teach them a lot of like the culture, traditions, and values as well. So I got to see that with them singing and dancing yesterday, which was really nice. And I think having all of those core values instilled in me plays such a big important role in everything that I do in life. I mean, even in sneakers, community is so important, and having that aspect rooted in me that I don't go against my family and my community is the most important thing, and we all play a part in that community, really shows me how I should act outside of that as well and in everyday life.
When I was gonna say, because I was gonna ask you too how that impact the community, from those different scents shows up in different areas. Like would you say there was like a tipping point where like it started, you had that differentiation, like where you were a kid and like you're just doing what the family does and engaging, and things are ticking, but they're not necessarily maybe not sticking yet. Then you get a little older and you're like, oh, like this is what this is, because now as an adult you're able to firmly grasp everything that was happening and all the rich history behind it. But like, when do you feel like there was a certain point where you were like, oh, like this is bigger than just like family doing stuff. This is like part of who I am, who we are. This is a part of like that rich culture I was speaking about earlier.
Um, Honestly, I don't like I was probably a typical teenager, and at the time, didn't really, not that I didn't care for my culture, but I was just, doing the things my family told me, this is what we do. This is how, like, we were working, we have a powwow at our for Morongo every year. It's at the end of September.
Mhm.
And it's a big 3-day long powwow. And growing up, we were always working the powwow. I was in the back, I was cooking, I was doing this, I was helping out with this. It was never a question of like if I wanted to do it or not. And I know a lot of kids these days then and now like experience those things where you help out your family where you can. But it wasn't until like I was probably in my like earlier 20s where I was like, oh, okay, like not a lot of people do this. Not a lot of people get to experience this. And it wasn't even until like maybe my later 20s where I actually went back to school. I ended up going to getting my degree at UCLA in American Indian Studies and kind of learning more about that in like a bigger aspect, that I was like, oh, this is actually really sacred and important. Like, and I knew it. I knew how special it was in a sense, but I just didn't realize it. So
Yeah.
I get it. Like, I think it just takes a lot of like different experiences to be like, oh, this is actually very special and something that you don't take for granted. And you take these things that you learn from your family, your culture, and you carry them on and you pass them down and you share those with people too at the same time. Like, I know not a lot of people out here in Los Angeles or in the sneaker community know too many people who grew up on a reservation or are native in the community to that extent. And a lot of people are kind of like interested, but don't
Hmm.
know like how to ask or what to ask. But I love it. Like once I start talking about it, especially like the things I learned in school and like the history of this country, I'm like, oh my God, it's so crazy. Like, let me tell you. So I love it, to be honest.
I want to ask this because I think it's a good learning moment for myself and for others too. You said it was called a powwow, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain what that is? 'Cause I think it's, I mean, and granted, maybe pardon any ignorance, like I'm thinking powwow, I've heard that before, that term, but
Yeah.
like hearing it's an actual thing in the community that actually has like a very much so deeper meaning. It's like, oh, like is that where that word came from? Like, what is a powwow?
Yeah, I mean, for it's you'd be surprised. Powwows go around across the country. Like there's the powwow circuit. A lot of dancers will go to and hit all the powwows, but it's essentially just a gathering. And our tribe, hosts ours at the same time every year. It's the last Friday of September, which is always lands on California Indian Day, actually. So the last
Mm.
Friday in September is always California Indian Day, and our powwow starts off then. And it's just a gathering, and there's vendors, booths, food, and there's a big dance tent. So a lot of people from different reservations, tribes, they come through and they dance, and it's a big competition at the end of the day too. There's different styles of dancing that are regional. Essentially, there's a lot of different ones. I think a lot of people mostly recognize like either fancy dancers or the ones with like the more bigger regalia, which is like mostly like Midwest and like and essentially because ours is like a little bit more toned down than that. It's not as vibrant and bright, but ours like think of like ours is like little birds when they dance and like they hop around, like that's how ours are. But yeah, it's essentially just a big gathering of everybody from all over, and they come and they celebrate and they dance for the weekend, and it's really fun. I love seeing the vendors are so much fun. Like the jewelry, like I always try to get beaded jewelry and everything every time I'm there. And the food, I love Indian tacos. If you don't know, they're absolutely amazing. We have this special bread called fry bread. Oh, it's the best. It's like imagine like a super fluffy tortilla, like thick, fluffy, and it's so good. And you could put we put meat and all kinds of stuff on it to make it like a taco, essentially, like an open
Mhm.
faced taco. Or you can make it sweet and like savory, like you could do powdered sugar, you could do honey, you could do, it's so good. Those are one of my favorite things. But that's a top layer of what a powwow is.
Now, so now that we're officially, now that I'm officially hungry, I'm gonna make sure.
Yeah,
That sounds super good.
it's so
I
good.
want to ask this too, because I think one thing that I've always admired about you and your craft is that you show up like you
Yeah.
all the time. You're not afraid to like you don't ever really try to shrink yourself in your voice or like where you show up or like who you are as a woman like in this space. And I've always kind of like admired that and like like that's something I know. There's some little girls or people that are walking around who you don't even know you're seeing, and they see how you show up, and that does something for them. So I've always kind of admired that about you, especially when you move around in such a predominantly male space. Like especially
Yeah.
being in even the content creator space, and it's not as male dominated, but being in that area of like the sneaker community. I see it all the time in comments on the podcast and things like that, like, "Oh, you're wrong,"
Yeah.
whichever, right? I think again, you just continue to show up and you do it with a smile on your face. Sometimes you do it loud, let people know where you stand, which again is appreciated. So I guess I'm saying all that to say this confidence. Where does this kind of come from for you?
um, I really wish I had a direct answer. But I've always kind of been a little bit more outgoing from the time I was a little girl. I was into, I did like all the extracurricular activities, but also like even when I was in school, because at the time when I was a kid, my reservation didn't have a school on the res. I went to school in town, and I still just like continuously put myself out there, and like just I was a talkative person, so I was always talking to somebody in class, making friends. And I ended up, I don't know why, I just always took on leadership roles in the classroom, at school. I was like an ASB, I was in this, I was in that. And I love doing that. But I think growing up and also seeing a lot of my family members who aren't as vocal. And if I can use my voice to speak for not only me, but others who are like me, I'm always going to. And even if I don't have the most confidence, I'm glad it comes off that I do, because that's really important. And I want other girls, from my home and all over to know that they can do the things that I've done and more, and they can put themselves in the spaces and use their voices. And if somebody says something about it, like it's sometimes stings. I see the comments online, like some people are really mean, but at the end of the day, like it says more about them than you. And I think I've
Facts.
always been very authentic to being who I am and a good person. And again, going back to the way I was raised, with I like under my mother and everything, I feel like I came up from a very strong line of a very long line of strong women, excuse me.
Both work.
And
Both work.
yeah, exactly. And I'm always gonna, use my voice in those spaces and places every single time.
Now, speaking of voices, and again, giving back to people who look like you and speaking up for them in that leadership role, we'll be also donating 5K to the Running Strong for American Indian Youth Foundation.
Yes.
The organization, for those who don't know, support Indigenous families, youth, water, and make sure that everybody has their essential resources, which I think is extremely important. Again, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but it's until it sticks to people. This is not just throwing money at a wall. This is not just throwing money
Yeah.
at a cause. When that money gets filtered into the system, it actually does work. It makes difference, and it's the things that you see within the kids, within the events, and things like that. So just remember, like this, that's what it's always about. It's not about how much money can we throw; it's about how far can it go. So it's always the mindset there.
Yes.
We'd love to just kind of know, what. And Grant, I'm pretty sure I know a little bit too, but like, what does this organization mean to you as far as this being an option for you, and just you continuously advocating and being a voice for not just like young girls and women, but also for your rich culture from where you come from, for your reservation. Can you kind of speak to that with the foundation and how it plays in that way?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you guys approached me and asked like who would I want the donation to go to, like I've stated, I'm based in Southern California, and I know there's a lot of indigenous organizations and things around this way
Hmm.
that could always use the donation. But I'm also very much so aware of like that my tribe and surrounding tribes are able to donate, and they do support a lot of stuff for Native peoples in Southern California and beyond that. So I really wanted the money to go to where I feel like you said it would be used the most. And I think with everything going on within this political climate, and especially right now with the government shutdown and SNAP benefits being taken away, there's already a lot of like food scarcity in Indian country. And I think it's just really important to like make sure we touch on that. There's a like even a lot of people don't know about this. Like not there's Navajo reservation is extremely big, and it goes across like a few states within Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah and all that. And there are still places on the Navajo reservation that do not have electricity or running water. There are places in like Pine Ridge Reservation. It's one of the poorest reservations across this country. They're very much so struggling. I think people have a common misconception of Native Americans in this country because, you know, there are some casinos and people think that we get free benefits or we don't pay taxes. And that's none of that is true. Like, I think a lot of stuff people think we get reparations. No, we have fought for a lot of the laws and the things that we do have now. And I think that people don't understand how many people across Indian country still are struggling. So I think a program like this that not only helps with food insecurities, with water, and putting back for the youth at that. When I was in college, one of the things I really did focus on, especially within my thesis and stuff, was for the youth, because our elders are always absolutely important. They're going to pass down our traditions, and we respect, and we have so much like on a pedestal for our elders within our communities, absolutely. But our youth are always going to be the future. They're going to be the ones running our tribes and our councils and pushing those things forward. And one of the things like across many indigenous communities is it's about 7 generations. You're not just thinking about the generation of now or this. You're thinking about 7 generations ahead. And I think when we pour into our youth, we're pouring into our future. Every time I'm going to stand on that.
I love that. I love that. I'm never going to say anything on top of that to step on it, 'cause I think that's the perfect way you said it.
Thank you.
I want to ask you two more things before we get ready to wrap things up. One question I wanted to ask. I mentioned earlier, you know, like when I first opened up the episode, I mentioned like all the different roles that you play, and the way that you show up and things like that. I guess I say that to say, you know, with everything that you've already accomplished so far, because in my eyes, you've accomplished a lot. You've done a lot of things, partnerships, connections, creations.
Yeah.
You know, people may take jabs at that podcast all day, but never in their life have they ever tried to put a studio together and to do it with people.
Yeah.
But
And the thing is, like, it is me and like two other co-hosts, as you know, and like we do it all ourselves. Like everything from the beginning to end, we produce, we edit, we cut, we like film, we do it all ourselves.
exactly, and so people wouldn't even know where to begin if they had to be in those shoes. So again, you know, but everything that you accomplished, I'd have to say, in 5 years, and if you want to play 3, 4, 2, you can too. But
Yeah.
within 5 years, you know, like where do you kind of see yourself creatively, or what you're accomplishing goal wise? Like where do you see yourself in that 5 year span?
I really hope I'm still doing something within media and marketing. I really hope, I really would love for my podcast to still be potting or doing something along the lines. I think I'm always going to be in sneakers. I've been in this space for well over a decade now, and that's never going to change. But I really do want to do more within media marketing and hosting. Being in front of the camera and doing the pod the last 2 years was really like shown me how much I've enjoyed that. And even though I'm still nervous about being on camera and I do get tongue tied, I'm like, I love it. I think it's one of the things, you know, about this whole thing with JD Voices is using my voice and using my platform for the betterment of things and for people who can't or don't have those platforms, and speaking for women, speaking for indigenous women, all in one. So I really hope I'm still doing that.
I love that. I love that. Now, last thing, my last question for you, I think is the perfect way to wrap it up. I think we've kind of touched on, like, you know, you kind of growing up as a child, you know, like the certain turning points within your like teenage to adulthood, and then who you are now. If you know, knowing what you are now, or knowing who you are now, we just talked about the 5 years. If you had to, I'm gonna be very specific here. If you had to give 16-year-old Elaina advice for her future, what would that be?
Definitely travel sooner. Definitely start traveling sooner. I started traveling a little bit in my 20s, but I should have just definitely started traveling sooner. And don't feel like you have to have it all figured out by the
Mm,
time you're 18 or 21. From my experience now, and to tell little 16-year-old Elaina, you know, we did it. I actually, a lot of people don't know, like, I went to cosmetology school. I have my cosmetology license still. I did hair and makeup for like the first half of my 20s for a long time. And I went back to school to get my degree in American Indian Studies. Ended up falling in love with that. So, but I still have my Cosmo license. I renew it every 2. I literally just renewed it last month because I was like, well,
That's
I don't do
crazy.
hair, but I worked for that license and I'm keeping it. Like, I put in a lot of time. I'm renewing this license every 2 years. And I think that for a lot of youth and even myself, you feel like you have to fit in a box and do one thing and have your life figured out at 16, which is absolutely insane. I'm 36 now. That was 20 years ago, which it feels like yesterday, if I'm being honest. Well, I don't know how that happened, but yeah, I do it all. If you want to do hair and then move on to the next thing and then the next thing and the next thing, do it because you do have the time and the resources, and don't feel like you have to get it all done right away or have it figured out.
Nothing else from me on top of that. I think that's the perfect way to end it. Elaina, thank you so much for joining the episode. Thank you for, again, being who you are, showing up authentically, and then just continuously, being a voice, whether it's in your community or just from like issues that are beyond the community. Again, thank you for doing that and continued support doing that from us and me included as well.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. And I was really excited to be able to do this, especially for Native American Heritage Month. It means a lot to me, I swear.
I love it. Absolutely. And then thank you everybody else for tuning into another episode of Community Voices. Until next time, take care.